So this week we read two parshiyos, Achrei, Weiss, and Kedoshim, and these two parshiyos contain many, many mitzvahs. Today we focus on the sugya of Gnevas Das. Lo tignoivu. Rashi writes, Lo tignoivu means monetary stealth, Gnevas mamoin. Lo tignov of Aseres Adibris is Gnevas nefoshois, kidnapping. But some Rishonim maintain Lo tignoivu means Gnevas Das as well, stealing one's mind, one's attitude, as we find in two different sugyas. Bava Metzia Samach, in the context of business, of transactions. One of the examples is a person that sells meat. The meat is dry, it's not fresh. If you soak it in water, it'll look better. That is Gnevas Das, making a false impression that this is fresh meat when it's not. Even if the price would be the same. There's no Gnevas Mamoin, it's Gnevas Das. You invite a person, they want to come over when you know he's not going to come and you have no intention of hosting him. That's Gnevas Das. You offer a person a gift and you know he won't accept and you don't really intend to give him. That's Gnevas Das. And these halachas are in two sources, Bava Metzia Daf Samach and Chulin Tzadik Daled Amud Aleph. And a Masechet Chulin, the Ritva brings in the name of Bali Atoisvis, Gnevas Das is included in Lo tignoivu in this week's parsha. It's a diuraisa. We find the same opinion, Smag Lo Tasa Kuf Nun Hey Sefer Yereim Kuf Chav Daled. On the other hand, Smak, both the Smag and the Smak, Sefer Mitzvahs Godel, Sefer Mitzvahs Kotten, were Bali Atoisvis. Smak Reish Samach Beis maintains Gnevas Das is only Midarabonon. That is the opinion of the Bach, Reish Chav Choshe Mishpat. Shulchan Aruch HaRav, Agarshaz, Balatanya, Hilchas Enoah v'Gnevas Das, Sif Yud Beis. The Rambam brings these halachas in two different sources. Hilchas Deis Perek Beis, he brings what is not associated with transactions with business. And it's in Hilchas Deis. Hilchas Deis is Midois Toivois, not mitzvot aseh or lo ta'aseh. And the other halachas he brings in Hilchas Mechira Perek Yud Ches. Mashma medivrei Rambam shnei dinim. If it's business associated, might be min haTorah. But I think according to the Rambam, it wouldn't be Gneva, it would be loisaina, it would be oinoa, because he doesn't bring it in Hilchas Gneva, but rather in Hilchas Mechira. Is it min haTorah or midrabon according to the Rambam? Divrei Torah niyam b'mokom echad v'shirim b'mokom achar. The Mabit Kira Sefer al Rambam Mechira writes, Pashtus mashma min haTorah. That is what the Rambam himself writes. Where? Surprise. Peresh Mishnah Mesechet Kelim Perek Yud Beis Mishnah Zayin. It's an Issa Diuraisa of Gnevas Das. Sma Reish Chav Ches Siv Kot Neches. Two Chidushim. Sma writes, if that is customary, it's basic courtesy, nimus, to invite a person even though you know he won't come, then it's legitimate. You know, you ask a person, how do you do? You don't expect them to start telling you. It's just a way of saying, good morning, good evening. And as a soul, we say, Ma shlomcha. You don't really want them to start telling you what's happening, how he is. So the Sma says, if that is customary, if that is the minig, if that is what people usually do, then it's legitimate. You could offer him something even if you know that he won't accept. Why would that be legitimate? Why would a custom permit doing an Aveira? I think if it's customary, it's no longer an Aveira. And we could understand this psak with two different nuances. Number one, Iyuda'ate anavshei, and that's a Gemara in Chulin Tzadik Daled. If I did nothing to fool him, I did nothing to create a false impression, it's just his own perception, then I bear no responsibility. I don't need to correct his mistaken perceptions. So if that is the minhag, and that is just basic courtesy and nimusim, then iuda ati anafshi, he's a person min hayishuv. He should know that not always when we ask, how do you do, that means an invitation for him to tell us. Not always when we say, do you want to come over, we really intend to invite him. And the second nuance would be, if you wouldn't, you might even hurt his feelings. And it definitely is not a mitzvah to hurt a person's feelings. And if that is what is expected of you, you could just do it and say it. But the bigger chiddush is this Masiv Kuntet Zayin. And the other aspect of Gnevis Das, which is business associated, this Ma also says, if that is the custom and that is what all the Soichrim do, you could do it as well. That means taking a dry piece of meat, soaking it in water to make it look fresher. So why would it be legitimate if everybody does it? To me, it would seem like over avera v'shona nasas loike heter. That's not much of a real heter. The way to understand this ma is, once again, this is custom. This is what they all do. So we expect the customer to understand. If you see a piece of meat that looks fresh and it has a lot of schmaltz, you shouldn't take that for granted. And you should ask the shopkeeper, is this fresh or not? Beyond that, if everybody does it and I won't, then I'm going to pay the price. When the customer sees a dry piece of meat, he's repulsed. He won't come again. He'll go into my neighboring store and he sees a fresh piece of meat. He knows that it was soaked in water. But nevertheless, it's more appealing. So he might ask the shopkeeper, he might not ask him. He might wish to assume that it's fresh meat, even though in the back of his mind he knows maybe it's not. So if everybody does it and I won't, I will be jeopardizing my reputation, my panasa, and I don't need to go to that extreme just to be overly honest. That is the way I would understand the Sema. However, Shulchan Aruch HaRav Sif Yutes says, Shoyma nafsho yirchak mizeh. I think this language proves might be legitimate, might be mutar, but it's not the right thing to do. We should conduct all our affairs and business dealings betachlis hayoshar, with utmost honesty and emes. The Chidush Harim said, Midvar sheket tirchak. All the other harachokas are midrabanan. There is only one value, one ethical principle in which all the achokas are minatayra, and that is midvar sheker tirchak. Divrei Malkiel also questions this psak in Chuvas Chele Gimel Simen Nun Dalet. So Rashi in Chunin writes, there's an issa of Gnevis Das, Oise kedei shechaveru yachzik loy toivo. When I pretend to invite him, when I pretend to offer him a gift, the reason I'm doing so is I want to have benefit. I want him to reciprocate in a similar way. When I need a favor, I want him to do a favor. Mashma medivrei Rashi, that if I have no intention at all of achieving any toivus and or any benefit, that wouldn't be an issur. So if our interpretation of Gnevis Das is Gneva, Oinoa, makes a lot of sense. The essence of both Gneva and Oinoa are receiving something you didn't really earn, getting something you don't really deserve to get. By Gneva, it's taking by force. By Oinoa, it's taking by deceit. But the common denominator, Tzadeh Shava, you're taking something which you do not really deserve to receive. So when I pretend to do him a favor, I want him to do me a favor. The favor you expect to get is not something you really deserve, because you did nothing for him. It is just deceit, as if you're offering something which you never intended to give. But if it's all about midas tovas, why would it make a difference? Still makes a difference. Yevames Samachayom mit Beis. The Gemara says, "Mutar l'shanos mipnei dvar hasholom." You could be untruthful if your intention is to enhance peace and harmony and bring people together. Shalom overrides emes. You have no sinister intentions. To the contrary, you want to bring people together, enhance brotherhood and friendship. Mutar l'shanos. It is not only mipnei dvar hasholom. Ksubas yudches. Da aloches kebesel kala noa v'chasudo. So, Ben Shammai says, Shammai Azukan says, she's not pretty, she's ugly. You can't say she's pretty. Hillel says, no, you could. Hillel's opinion is, okay, so it's not truth. That's a greater mitzvah than being 100% truthful. Yes, I lied when I said she's a beautiful kala. I didn't do it for myself. I have no intention of getting any benefit. I did it for her and for her chasson. I want to enhance their relationship. He should appreciate her. He should love her. Kala noa v'chasida. That is Shittas Beis Hillel. The Gemara clearly says in Chulin, Gnevis das is mutar kedei lachabdoi. I'm a choshev HaRav. He's a guest. Nobody really knows him. I invite him over to my house. I know he's not going to come. I didn't really intend to invite him. But my intention is the people that don't know him. He's a newcomer to the community. If I invite him to my house, they will all assume, oh, this is an important person. The Rav invited him. Yes, it's Gnevis Das on one hand, but my intentions are pure. And that is why Rashi says the essence of Gnevis Das is when I do what I do, which is not entirely truthful, to achieve benefit. Only then is it an Isser. And I think Rashi Lishitosa in Gittin Samach Omed Aleph. So in Gittin Samach Omed Aleph, the Gemara deals with the question, could we give a bracha to non-Jews? And it's a discussion in the Gemara. And the Gemara brings some of the greatest Amerom were Magdim Shalom to non-Jews. Rashi says, in their hearts, their kavanah was to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not to that Gentile. Tosfos argues, Gnevis Das. Tosfos says, no, it is legitimate to bench a non-Jew. Rashi probably goes Lishitosai. I didn't do it to achieve any personal benefit. I did it because it's the right thing to do. I did it because I don't want to cause a chilul Hashem, and therefore there is no problem of Gnevis Das. Maloya Royam was one of the great Gedolim 200 years ago. He was a chassid of Rabbi Yitzchak Merbadichov, and in his Agos and Shas Vilna he quotes the Zohar. That is exactly what Yankov Avinu did with Esav. Yankov benched Esav, but he didn't intend to bench Esav, but rather Klape Shemaya. We can't prove anything, Lanias Daiti, from Yankov and Esav. On one hand, Esav was a Rosha. He was out to kill Yankov. Esav is Shoirish Atuma. So even according to Tosfos, you could bench a decent non-Jew. After all, Chavavodem Shenivra B'Tselem. Esav is different. Yaakov had no intention of bestowing a bracha on Esav, who was out to destroy him and fight the Kodesh Baruch Hu. On the other hand, we can't prove from Yaakov that it's legitimate because Yaakov was an oines. He was threatened by Esav. He was terrified Esav might try to kill him. So either it was pekuach nefesh or at least an oines. So I think the story between Yaakov and Esav is not really relevant in your name. I think sometimes we find halachas that are not necessarily based on Genevas Das, even though they seem to be close. Sefer Hasidim Tav Chavav. And this is a HaRav or halacha which for me is very difficult to accept. Sefer Hasidim writes, a person asks me to lend him money. I know that he doesn't pay, so I don't want to give him alavot. I'd happily give him some tzedakah, but the sum he expects is far greater than what I should be giving as tzedakah. And I'm afraid the money will never come back. Sefer Hasidim says you're not allowed to say, I don't have, because that's a lie. You should say, I don't want to give you, because I'm not confident you're going to pay back. And I wonder, why do I need to hurt his feelings? What is the mitzvah to hurt his feelings? Wouldn't it be preferable to say, I don't have money right now? It's not true, but imuta l'shanois mipnei devar hasholem, to enhance harmony and relationships. And it's muta to say karanoa v'chasuda, to enhance the relationship between the chosan and the kala. And Genevas Das is muta kedei lechabdoi. Why wouldn't it be muta to say, I don't have money, to prevent insulting a person and hurting his feelings? And he might become an enemy. Why not? So this is a gewaldige chiddush to me. The Magen Avraham quotes the Sefer Hasidim. Lanias daiti, we're dealing with a midas u emes bahafloge yesera. Sefer Hasidim isn't really a clear and pure halachic source. Sefer Hasidim was a Yehuda Chassid. Mereshoni Chasidash is going back 1,000 years. But most of what's in Sefer Hasidim is really kishmoikein hu midas chasidus mufleges. So I would say a person that is careful all his life, never to say a devar sheker. Never. Maybe that is the proper hanoga for him. But I feel for us, definitely would be preferable to say, I don't have money, than hurting a person, embarrassing him, and I say, I won't give you money because I think you might not pay that loan. Me'inyan le'inyan, ma'oisei u'inyan, v'shalo legamre ma'oisei u'inyan, Perek Yud Mesechet Shvias Mishnah Ches. In another few months, Shnas HaShemitah in Eretz Yisrael. Many koilim already started learning Hilchos Shvias. This week I gave a shiur for hundreds of people, an introduction to Hilchos Shvias in Yerushalayim, and great koilel of Rabbi Yosef Efrati, my dear friend. But Shemitah's Ksafim is noyeg at the end of next year, not the end of this year. So if a person wants to pay a loan after Shemitah's Ksafim, then the lender needs to say, Meshamet ani, you don't need to pay me. And if he says, Afal Pikan, we could take the payment. Eretzeach b'yemiklot. People want to respect him. They invite him to sit on the mizrach. He needs to say, Roitzeach ani, I killed a person, and I'm here because I'm in Golos, so I don't reserve the respect that you're bestowing on me. And if they say, Afal Pikan, mutar lo. That's the Mishnah. Yerushalmi, both in Shvias Daf Lamed Amud Beis and in Makkah Zayin Amud Beis, Yerushalmi says, Ki yoitze bedavar. Person who's considered a Talmud Chacham. People respect him because they think he is Buki in two Masechtas. In reality, he is only Buki in one Masechta. He is required to tell them, I'm not such a big lamdin as you think. You think I'm Buki in two Masechtas, I'm only Buki in one. Many times that happens to me. People think I'm a far greater Talmud Chacham than I really am, because nobody knows a person as he knows himself. According to Yerushalmi, you need to object and say, I'm not such a big lamdan. So why do I never do it? I know people. I know the world today. And if people want to be machabed you, and you're going to say, no, I'm not such a Talmud Chacham, they'll only admire you even more, and they'll say, wow, what an honor he is. Wow. Not only is he the greatest lamda in the world, he's also a great honor. So that is counterproductive. And if you will object and you say, I'm not such a big lamdin, and people will be in a spoil, ultimately, even when you say I'm not such a big lamdin, it will be more gaiva than another. So let them just do what they wish to doing, and if they're mechabed you, receive that covered. What is important is between you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Don't let it get into your head. Don't become arrogant, and really, it is only you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu know what you really deserve, what you're really fitting for, and what not. But anyway, the Maharit, Chuvas Marit, or Chaim, Siman Ches, wonders, why would that be considered Gnevis Das? I am not doing anything to deceive other persons. I'm not doing anything to make an impression. Why do I bear responsibility if they think I'm a greater lamdan than I really am? I mean, why is that my problem and not their problem? If people have a mistaken perception, it's not my problem. But I don't know why the Merit thinks this mission has anything to do with Gnevis Das. I think it has to do with Torah and Kvoida Torah. Also, especially when you don't really deserve it. So I think this is Aloha Misuyemes and then Hanoah Medivrei Torah. Has nothing to do with a broader sugya of Gnevis Das. וכך כוסף אחידו בשלוש תשובס חיים שואל חלק א' סימן עין א'. The Chador wrote tens of Svarim, one of the most prolific Gedolim that ever lived. One of his great Svarim is Shalosh Teshuvos Chaim Shoal, and that is what he clarifies. Lo kedivrei Maharit. Very common phenomena, which happened to me many times, and I have a very firm and clear opinion, even though some other Rabbanim and Gedolim would not necessarily agree with me. You come to a chasana. You are invited by one party. You wouldn't come l'chaved the other machutin. You feel especially close with Mr. A and not Mr. B. But you come into the chasana and Mr. B rushes over you, and he's so happy, and he seems to be convinced that you came l'chvoidoi. Would that be Gnevis Das? So some Rabbanim Paskin, you need to clarify matters and said, I'm happy to see you, but I didn't come l'chvoid, I came l'chvoid the other machutin. And I think that's ridiculous. Person is happy you came l'chvoidai. Why not let him bask in his glory? Let him be happy. I quoted Rashi. Gnevis Das is wrong only when your intention is to achieve personal benefit. So, this is basically a lie. You're doing something just to put on a show, and your motive and intention is to gain. That is Gnevis Das. I did nothing to create a mistaken perception. Came to a chasana, b'toim lev. Both mechatonim are happy to see me. Each of them is convinced I came l'chavoidai. Let them be happy. What mitzvah would there be to dash a person's simcha, especially b'shas simcha? So in Yerushalayim we have many simcha complexes, not only a simcha hall. In Gutnik, as you walk in, one hall on the right, one to the left. Wolf in Yerushalayim, you walk up the stairs, one hall to the right, one hall to the left. And every night there are two chasanas. Many times that happened. I come to a chasana in Wolf. I was only aware of one chasana. I'm going right. The mechutin of the other chasana on the left hall just happens to come out. He sees me, rushes over to me, takes it for granted that I'm here because I came to his chasana. I didn't even know that he's marrying off a child. And even if I would know, maybe I wouldn't come. But he's convinced I came to him and he's so happy. So what am I supposed to do? I walked into his chasana, I danced with the chasana, I danced with him, I spent 20 minutes. That's not Gnevis Das. So am I supposed to hurt his feelings? It's very unpleasant, seeing a Rav and saying, well, I'm so happy you came. And the Rav tells you, I didn't come. I didn't come to you. I apologize. Why? Well, what's the point? How could that be a mitzvah? It's a mitzvah to make people happy. We have no mitzvah to make people sad or to diminish their simcha. As long as I did nothing untruthful, I did not try to create a story that is not true, then that is not Genevas Das. The Rambam so beautifully and so eloquently defines what is Genevas Das. And I want to read the Lashon of the Rambam. Perek Beis Melchus Deis Halacha Vov. אסור לאדם להנהיג את עצמו בדברי חלקות ופיתוי, ולא יהיה אחד בפה ואחד בלב, אלא תויכוי כבערוי. You cannot conduct your personal affairs with sheker and deceit and be one in your mouth and different in your heart. לא יפתח לו חובייס שהוא צורך לפותחן המוחרון כדי לפתויסוי שבשבילו בשביל כבודי פוסח. And then the Rambam concludes this halacha. ואפילו מילו אחת של פיתוי וגנבס דס אסור. אלא שפת אמס ורוח נוכן ולב טהור מכל עמל ועבויס. שפת אמס, רוח נוכן ולב טהור. אסור להנהיג את עצמו בדברי חלקות וביטוי, פיתוי, ולא יהיה אחד בפה ואחד בלב. These words are so beautiful and so clear, and that is what Genevas Das is all about. Shulchan Aruch isn't as beautifully eloquent, but the message is the same. ריש חופכס יבוא, ואף לגנוב דעת הבריות בדברים, שמראה שעושים בשבילו, ואינו עושה בשבילו, אסור. Creating a false impression that you're doing something for him, and in reality you're doing it for yourself or for others, that is also. The Isra is only when that is my intention, shemara she'oisa b'shviloi ve'enoi oisa. So when you just did something in the most natural way, you did not intend to do it l'chvoida, but he thinks you did, let it be. Let him think. If he's happy, let him be happy. Play along. As long as you have no sinister intentions and you do not plan this out to achieve any gain or any benefit. Kach nera borur la'anius daiti. So in this week's parsha we have the mitzvah v'yahavtu l'reachu kamoichu, and Rabbi Kiva teaches us. Ze klal godol b'toiro. Safru, Torah Skan in this week's parsha, Kedoshim, Perites Nedorim, Yerushalmi, Daf Lamed, Klal Godel B'Torah. We are in the midst of Yemei Sfira, days that were transformed. Mor Godel Afelo, Mesimcho La'evel, and the tragedy of 24,000 Talmidei Rabbi Kiva that perished, Shaloi Nagu Kavod Zeh B'Zeh. And many throughout the ages wondered, why such harsh punishment of an Aveda does not seem to be such a terrible transgression. Loi nagu kavod zeh b'zeh. I explained many times, being a Talmud of a giant is not only a privilege, it's also an obligation. It's not only a schus, it is a responsibility. Many times I heard from my great Rebbe, the Kloisim Rebbe, the Divrei Yatzev, one of his earliest recollections as a child. He said, I was sitting in my father's lap and my father was crying, and I asked him, Abba, Tata, favus weinst du? And he said, Zalma leib, ich bin dich mekane. And I wondered, and he said, Tata, you envy me? I should envy you. I'm a little boy. You're a Rebbe with many Hasidim. And he said, I'm mekane you because you didn't see the Divrei Chaim. You didn't have the schus, the privilege of seeing the Tzanz Zayda. And I was taken aback even more, and I said, Tata, I should envy you because you did see the Divrei Chaim. And my father, crying, responded, you didn't know the Divrei Chaim, so what could they demand from you la'achar mea ve'esrim in the day of judgment? They will ask me, you saw the Divrei Chaim, what did you learn from him? And my feeling is, those 24,000 Talmidim of Rebbe Kiva that perished, Min HaShamayim, they were asked, you knew Rebbe Kiva and you learned nothing from him? Where were you when Rebbe Kiva said, V'yahavta oreachu kamocha zekha godel b'toira? Where were you when Rebbe Kiva said, Chavav Adam shenivra b'tzelem, chibi yasera naidaslo shenivra b'tzelem elokim, and Perek Gimel of Masechet Avos? Where were you when Rebbe Kiva said, Es Hashem Elokecho tiro l'rabbis talmidei chachamim? What did you learn from your great Rebbe Kiva? Only lamdes? You learned nothing of Derech Chaim and Terchachas Musar. You didn't learn from him what it is Kvoid Chaverim and Ahavas Reim. Yes, being the Talmud of a giant is a responsibility and not only a privilege. However, Chazal say, Kula Mesu ben Pesach Latzeres, Mepnei Sholer Nagu Koved Ze Beze, not because Shelo Ahavu Ze Et Ze. Love and respect are closely related. Usually you respect people that you love people that you respect, but they're not one and the same. So both in Toras Kohanim and Yerushalmi, everybody knows the famous Mama, very few people are aware that Ben Azai disagrees with Rebbe Kiva. And Ben Azai says, Zeh Sefer Toldos Sodom Klal Gadol Heimeno. We could appreciate Rebbe Kiva. Was so central, so essential, so important. But what is so special about Zeh Sefer Toldos Sodom? Lani es daiti. Rebbe Kiva and Ben Azai discuss what is the most basic, fundamental, important ingredient of a just, Torah, moral, ethical society. Rebbe Kiva says brotherly love. That should be the cornerstone of a Torah society. Ben Azai says, Moiri v'Rabbi. Ben Azai was a Talmud Chaver of Rebbe Kiva. I think there is something even more important. Kavod, respect. Because Ahava, by its very nature, is not universal. A person should love his wife more than he loves other people. He should love his children more than he loves strangers and family. Love by its very nature, we love some people more than we love others, and that is human nature. You can't change that. But we need to learn to respect even those that we do not love. And respect could be universal. Respect could be towards everyone. So Ben Azai says, Zeh Sefer Toldos Sodom B'Tzelem Elokim Bara Oisam. That is even more important than V'yahavta l'reacha kamocha. And I could almost hear Ben Azai saying, my beloved Rebbe, don't be angry at me. It's not what I say, it is what I heard from you. Because you were the one that taught us in Masechet Avos. Chavav Adam shenivra b'tzelem, chibi yasera nadaslo shenivra b'tzelem elokim. And that is the pasuk. Zeh Sefer Toldos Sodom. B'tzelem elokim bara oisam. Let's not get into the machlokes between Rebbe Kiva and Ben Azai. Achois b'zeh v'gam ezeh al tanach yadcha. Yes, we should love each other, we should respect each other. V'yahavta l'reacha kamocha. Chavav Adam shenivra b'tzelem. And we are in the midst of Yamei Asvira. Now is the time. So a terrible plague struck Talmidei Rebbe Kiva. 24,000 Talmidim died from Askara. Askara, they couldn't breathe. Corona, first and foremost, more than anything else, it attacks your pulmonary system, your lungs. Most of the people that died from Corona died because their lungs were no longer functioning. At least in Eretz Yisrael, we seem to be almost out of the woods, miraculously. Baruch Hashem. I know that in America things are much better. I know that in South America things are horrific, and in some countries in Europe. So one of the greatest gulas is Tinhagu kavod ze beze. Shulchan Aruch writes Tov Tzaddik Gimel. Lag BaOmer is a day of simcha because Posku Melamus. They stopped dying. The plague was over. Why is that? Many times I quoted Rabbi Sol Salant and the Chidush Harim. Memtes Yemei Omer coincide with Memches Dvorim Shatoyre Nikneis Behem. So every day we count. Let us assume that Rabbi Kiva had the same opinion. If you count Memches Dvorim Shatoyre Nikneis Behem, unbelievable. Number 32 is Oyev Esabriyos. I wish to believe that Rabbi Kiva's Talmidim did the same as Rabbi Sol Salanta's Talmidim, as the Chidush Harim's Chasidim. Day 32, they worked on Avos Abriyos. Day 33, the plague was over. So, in the Yemei Svira, this is our avodah. This is what we should be focusing on. Ahavas reim v'kavod chaverim. And then this plague and all the others will go away. Love each other, respect those that you do not love, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yerachem Aleinu. We should only be mevasa b'soros toivos. We should be zocheh to bias Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mheru v'yomeinu. Amen.